Hello and welcome in to this week's edition of The Walkthrough. I am your host, Intern Joe Macheca. A lot of offseason questions now for South Carolina football. And then obviously the Fighting Quarter Zips and the Fighting Dawns are each doing their thing on the hardwood. South Carolina men's and women's basketball team, that is. Both teams doing really well. South Carolina men off to a 7-0 start. This week's episode of The Walkthrough, I have a recurring guest on. If you couldn't tell by the title, our good friend Kendall Smith returns. We filmed that interview on Friday. Really good catching up with her. And so I wanted to go in, update everything in terms of a South Carolina football transfer portal. And we talked, obviously, with Kendall about that. An update on the transfer portal for South Carolina football. Wide receiver Xavier Short has entered the portal. Wide receiver Omega Blake. Defensive lineman DeAndre Martin has entered the portal. Wide receiver Kyla Corton. Defensive tackle Felix Hinton. Wide receiver Landon Sampson, kicker Mitch Jeter, which we had talked about, wide receiver Juice Wells, which Kendall and I talked about, Colton Gauthier, Tanner Bailey, Donovan Westmoreland, Xavier McLeod, all in the portal for South Carolina. Juice Wells being the big name there. And obviously we talked in our interview with Kendall that I would be updating if any other big names have entered the portal. No real other surprises really for South Carolina. So that is your portal update as of Sunday, December 3rd. This episode is going to serve as basically your transfer portal preview because the portal opens up tomorrow, Monday, December 4th. Obviously, this weekend they've had a contact period where coaches could go out, recruit guys that are in the portal, reach out, and that kind of thing. So that was a big weekend for Shane. I know he was all over the country. So before I get to my interview, as always, I want to talk to you guys about our good friends over at Liberty Tax. Tax ID is that uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through it alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time. If you're in a hurry for your refund, call in the tax team at Liberty Tax. Fast, accurate, and guaranteed. On the other hand, if you think you might be owing Uncle Sam, talk to Liberty Tax Team to make sure you're not paying more than you should owe. They'll find every possible deduction for you. Locally owned and operated, staffed by tax professionals from your neighborhood. Open 9 to 9 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays with multiple service options. Start through the Liberty Tax mobile app or through the desktop portal. Make an appointment or just walk in. Give a call to upload your tax documents, and when you come in, your return will be ready to review and sign. Give them a call on your screen right now for those watching. And for those listening, 803-462-5576. Once again, on your screen right now. And for those listening, 803-462-5576 for all of your tax needs. And the show is also brought to you by our good friend Clint Hammond over at the Movement Mortgage Network. Clint is the absolute man over there. Give him a call for all of your mortgage needs. In need of help with your mortgage, call on our good friend of Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage Network. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2003, which allows him to help everyone from the first-time home buyer to the complicated and complex jumbo buyer. Whether you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance, nothing is more important than a well-thought-out financial strategy that comes with 5-star customer service. He's even helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former Gamecock quarterback Perry Worth with their mortgages. So give our guy Clint a call. Like I said, he's always above us on our Gamecock Central live programming. And for those listening, 803-771-6933. Once again, 803-771-6933. Give our guy Clint a call. He is the man. Now it is time to get into the interview this week. Again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I had our good friend Kendall Smith on with me. Kendall returns for the first time. Excited to have her back on. She's wonderful. We had a great conversation. Great to catch up with her. Really, really, really good interview. So here is Kendall Smith. Welcome back into this week's edition of The Walkthrough. My guest has now joined me, the queen of the Queen City, your favorite former intern's favorite former intern. She's been on ESPN, Jumbotrons, everywhere you look in Charlotte, and she is with me here now, the one, the only Miss Kendall Smith. Kendall, thanks for joining me today.
Joe, thank you so much for the intro. That was absolutely incredible. You're the only person that calls me the queen of the Queen City. Sometimes I feel like the jester of the Queen City, but I appreciate the kind intro, and I'm excited to be here with you today.
Absolutely. There's plenty to talk about as it is talking season for football. A lot of guys entering the portal. The portal officially opens up on Monday, so this will be going out on Sunday. We're taping this on Thursday, so I'll have a little update for you guys quickly in the intro of guys entering the portal before it opens up on Monday. But Kendall, any thoughts of entering the transfer portal on us?
I just have so many, Joe. I could go on and on and on. We could do a whole podcast about the portal. I will start by saying, just opinion wise, and this is my opinion, this isn't the opinion of Gamecock Central or anyone at South Carolina, but I think things have gotten out of hand to a certain degree. You're seeing left and right now, people are entering the portal, they're leaving their schools, and they want something new. And I think to a certain degree, that can be a good thing, right? Like, not everything is going to work out for everybody where they are. But I also think it's not a great thing because in the world of NIL now, you are seeing so many more people leave for reasons that go just beyond playing football. So it's definitely a tricky thing to talk about. There's a lot that goes into all of it, but this is something that I am not enjoying about college football is the trend that things are going down. I'm not super into just how crazy everything is right now. And I think a lot of people can agree. And South Carolina is starting to see it. Like we say it every year, the transfer portal giveth and it taketh. And right now it's taking a lot from South Carolina, but you tend to see that at the beginning, right? So you got to kind of pause, take a deep breath and realize how things go with the portal because you lose a lot at the beginning. And then, kind of towards the end, as you give it a couple weeks to simmer down, you start to see the benefits of it. So people love it. People hate it. I think that it is kind of messing with the college football that we all know and love. But I know that there is a place for NIL. There is a place for transferring. But do we need to talk about maybe bringing back sitting out for a year? I'm certainly not opposed to it. We can talk about that a little bit later on, Joe, but I'll just say everything is crazy right now, but take a deep breath because things are not always as bad as they seem.
Yeah, exactly. The way you brought it up, sometimes it can feel like the sky is falling when guys are hitting the portal, entering the portal, especially in this beginning stage when, nobody can commit. I believe that the window to communicate has opened up now. Guys can go visit and talk to coaches, but in terms of committing to schools, that doesn't open up until Monday. But yes, guys hitting the portal, and especially the way that college football is nowadays, right, with the portal, as Kendall brought up, it isn't really the same college football that we know, and it's going to evolve year after year. So a lot of guys are going to hit the portal early and try to, be in there from the jump to, secure a spot for themselves elsewhere. And so I think this is just the new normal, really, especially guys doing it as early as they are. Couple spots for the Gamecocks as of now in the portal right now. You've got Colton Gauthier, Donovan Westmoreland, Xavier McLeod. He's been in the portal, we believe. Wes Mitchell saying since October, since that incident with the team. Tanner Bailey, Mitch Jeter, Juice Wells is rumored to be in the portal or has said he's going into the portal. And then wide receiver Omega Blake as well. So quite a few names up there. Kendall, any that jump off the paper to you?
Mitch Jeter kind of stands out to me. We'll get into Juice Wells here in a second because obviously he hasn't come out and said this. By the time that this episode comes out, he may or may not have. I'm not sure. But as we are recording this on Friday, December 1st, he has not officially come out on his own and said that he is leaving and entering the portal. But Mitch Jeter kind of surprises me a little bit. I don't know about you, Joe. It was kind of one of those things where I was like, I wasn't really expecting him to leave. He kind of has his position locked up and he's had it locked up now for a couple of seasons. So that was a little bit surprising. I know people aren't going to be super thrilled about hearing Omega Blake leaving, but the others that are leaving, like you can kind of make a case for it, right? They weren't getting a ton of playing time. It's not like, you were seeing them constantly or they were making these huge, big impacts at South Carolina. So if they want to go out and they want to try to go to a school where they feel like they can get a little bit more playing time, then that's completely understandable. Yeah. The Juice Wells thing is almost a different question in and of itself. Like I said, Juice has not come out and has never said to this point that he is leaving, but many outlets, including Gamecock Central, that are highly credible, have reported that this is what will probably happen. It's kind of going on behind the scenes. It's what people are hearing. And I think for a lot of Gamecock fans, it's really surprising and it's shocking. And I get that it's frustrating too, because you're donating your money to NIL collectives, which we love. Garnet Trust, hit them up, garnettrust.com, because this is an important time to go out there and donate and, try to help South Carolina to stay competitive. But I get it. Like, people who are out there and they're working hard and they're making money. And I saw some tweets about this. They're giving their hard-earned money to these collectives and they're going to these players. And then in Juice's case, like, he didn't play all season and now he's leaving, and people are like, oh my gosh, like he got money from South Carolina NIL wise and now he's out apparently. And I can understand how that would be frustrating. In Juice's defense, we don't know what the whole situation looks like behind the scenes. We can only speculate, we can only assume certain things, and that's honestly not 100% fair to him. So I think there's a two-way street with this, but it is really surprising, especially with him coming out a week and a half ago saying, yeah, I'm going to be back. He didn't word for word say I'm coming back to South Carolina, but just by the way that I think 99% of people took his words, it was like, oh, okay, like he's coming back to be a Gamecock for another season. Now you're hearing is a change of heart. People are like, I've given money, and some of that money might have gone to Juice. He didn't play. Now he's leaving. What's going on? I think for a lot of people, this is way worse than the Jaheim Bell situation. People were frustrated about that, but they'll say, hey, at least Jaheim played. We didn't even see Juice playing hardly at all this season. And now people are speculating about his injury. And they're like, was he sitting out for longer for other reasons? We do not know. We can't confirm. We can't deny. We have no idea at this point. But I understand the frustration and the shock that comes with that. So, these are kids, they're college athletes. You have to understand they need to do what's best for them at the end of the day. And we wish Juice the best and we want him to do what's best for him. But you also see the frustration of people who have donated and put their time and their money into this. And you're seeing how this new world of NIL and the transfer portal affects more than just the coaches and the athletes in the school. It affects people that are in real life working their daily jobs that probably have nothing to do with the football program outside of being a fan and donating money.
Yeah, Kendall, absolutely. You covered a lot of bases there. I
just went off.
Absolutely. I love it.
Like ill will to anybody. Like, it's not like I'm mad. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. I'm just like saying, I see both sides and I hear the fans that are frustrated by it. Like, I hear you and I see you and I understand why that would be frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the walkthrough. So Kendall obviously saving her best takes for my show, of course. But yeah, no, I agree. It's a sticky situation for both parties, right? And then you think about Coach Beamer as well, because he could be out recruiting guys right now, but yet he, I believe, is still in Columbia, kind of handcuffed, dealing with guys with NIL from a in-house standpoint, right? He's dealing with his own team transferring out rather than going on around the country and going talk to some other players. So I think there's that aspect of it. And then too, Juice Wells can't officially enter the portal until he graduates later this month. So there is going to be some time that Juice has to think about this whole thing. And so whether or not, he decides to change his mind and go contrary to the other reports, like Kendall brought up, he hasn't officially said anything on his socials or anything, that has come out specifically from his mouth. So he still has time to, I guess, flip. It's going to be really interesting to see that whole process, right? Like how, what rumors are going to start and everything just between the next week, because I mean, I'm not the most plugged in person, but everyone hears stuff, everyone hears whispers and that kind of thing. So the Juice Wells saga is far from over in my mind. And I think, Kendall brought up a lot of ideas in terms of what you can do in this situation when a player is hurt like that. And I mean, I'm fully buying Juice's injury. That was a very real injury, especially with a foot injury like that. Like, it's something where as a wide receiver, you got to pivot, cut. Like, it's a very real injury. And, I talked about it on the post-game show and my show as well. There's a very big difference between being cleared to play and being at 100%. And for a star wide receiver like Juice Wells, you need to be able to be at 100% if you want to perform to your best. Because if you're out there not feeling 100% but cleared to go, that's not great on tape, right? When you're looking in terms of the next level and stuff like that. So if Juice Wells was not going to go out there and have bad tape essentially for NFL teams to just, put him aside for this upcoming draft if he were to make that leap. So it's a very, very sticky situation. And, as of Friday, December 1st, like Kendall said, we don't know a whole lot. We have the reports that he'll enter the portal. But again, it's going to come down to, what Juice wants. And then also the NIL's situation. It's never a bad time to give to Garnet Trust. I believe it's garnettrust.com to find more opportunities. I'm going to have Jeremy Smith on, I believe, next week to talk all things Garnet Trust. So that'll be a really fun interview. Just kind of pick his brain what that whole thing looks like. and just learn more about it, because it's a really evolving space, especially in collegiate athletics. I think, what we're seeing right now is just going to be a taste. And when the playoff goes to 12 teams, you're going to see guys jumping around even more so. But Kendall,
like the NFL now, college
yeah, I
football. It's
know.
not the college football it once was. But just one more thing before
Yeah.
we move on, just to cap this off. Yes, I 100% agree about Juice's injury, and I thought it was 100% valid as well. The problem is now that you have all this speculation going on, and now the fan base is starting to turn, and they're starting to get upset with what they're hearing and what they're seeing, and they're going to speculate and think things. And that's the last thing that you want if you are Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks, because you don't want people questioning the validity of injuries, or you don't want people questioning the loyalty of, like, it's just such a slippery slope. And that is my number one concern about everything that's going on in the world of college football. It's like, yeah, players should be able to make money. I'm all for it. Off your name, image, and likeness, like, go for it 100%. But then you get into all this other stuff with the portal. I think for me, my number one concern, it's not the money and it's not the NIL. It's the portal and how easily you can just say, oh, I'm hanging it up. I'm out.
Yep.
I'm going somewhere else. Like, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but a lot of people want to test the waters and see if it will be. And I think that's tough. And that's why I kind of liked that old rule of you have to sit out a year if you want to go somewhere else, maybe unless you're a graduate transfer or something. Like, you could make other rules. Obviously, they're not going to listen to me, but that's just been weighing on my mind over these last few days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love, the ideas of maybe putting it into a fund after they graduate or stuff like that. I think what ultimately it's going to evolve into is contractual things. Like the players will be paid per game like the NFL eventually. I think it'll get into that point. Like, just if you were on the field, you will get paid. That's going to be 5, 10, maybe 15 years down the road. But I think that's what we're bound to at this point. Just kind of the way that this offseason has been free agency. We saw it a little bit last season. And we're like, okay, is this going to be here to stay? This season is proving that, yeah, it is. And especially like Kendall brought up, it's very easy to go in and out of a situation if it doesn't work. So maybe some penalties on that, making you stay there, commit to something, could be beneficial for the sport. We will see. Kendall, keeping up with the portal talk, what are some positions that you could see Shane Beamer in South Carolina going after, offensively or defensively?
Well, we'll start with the offensive line. There's a name that's now new in the portal as of today, Matthew Bedford out of Indiana. He's an offensive lineman. It's interesting because during his recruitment process, it was actually during the Will Muschamp era, because he has 1 year of eligibility left. South Carolina was kind of brought in later during his high school recruitment process and tried to target him and go after him, and he ended up going to Indiana to play for the Hoosiers. He's now entered the portal, like I said, with a year of eligibility left. So I could see them going for a guy like him. He's been around at different spots on the offensive line. My parents went to Indiana. Joe, you're an Indiana guy.
Obviously,
so I had the chance to watch the Hoosiers this year a lot. It was an interesting season, to say the least. But he was one of the brighter spots of that team and a very interesting target, I think, for the portal. So as of today, on December 1st, that's kind of the first name that comes to my mind. Yes, you think about the offensive line for sure when you think about problems from this past year. Now, you have younger guys that are going to continue to develop, and South Carolina has done a good job of recruiting at the high school level in terms of the offensive line. But you can't always expect your freshmen to come in and even sophomores and make huge impacts. We did see that this year with Trevon Ball and Tree Babalade, but those were kind of unique situations. So offensive line, something that South Carolina definitely needs to go after. Your receiver room continues to thin and thin and thin. So you would hope that South Carolina looks kind of over in that room. And then quarterbacks as well. Like, yeah, you're counting on Lenora Sellers to be your guy next year. You're going to bring in Dante Reno, who's a great ad for South Carolina, but you're losing Tanner Bailey, which I think is a hit if you're South Carolina, because I would have considered him probably the guy who was going to be the backup third string next year. So you lose him. Colton obviously didn't get a ton of opportunities, but still a body that you're losing in that quarterback room. So for me, those are the three main position groups that come to mind on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, there's a lot of places to look. If you're South Carolina, you can always bulk up that defensive line. And we saw a ton of improvement in South Carolina's defense towards the end of the season. But you can never go wrong being good on a defensive line being good in the trenches. And I think that's something South Carolina will consider as the transfer portal continues to gain names and they continue to go after them.
Yeah, absolutely. The D-line is one I'm also looking at. And then the running back room. I think, there are a couple guys in the portal right now. One particular guy I'm looking at, Chris Tyree out of Notre Dame. He's a guy that you can convert to play running back, started at running back for Notre Dame, and then obviously Audric Estime came in and took over that room. But Chris Tyree been playing wide receiver. Wide receiver, you still need depth there because you're losing Omega Blake as well. You can get a guy that can play them both. In the SEC, he's played a lot of big-time football for the Irish, so be on the lookout for Chris Tyree. But running back is something, even with Daniel Hill potentially coming to South Carolina, there are still things that are left to be decided for Daniel Hill, but you would expect, or at least hope to expect, to get a guy like that. Chris Tyree would make a very big difference in terms of depth in either of those two rooms, so be on the lookout for that. Or just, and I haven't really looked in terms of who all is in the portal in terms of running backs. I think a lot of star guys are kind of waiting a little bit to kind of see who else goes into the portal and who all needs running backs as well. So, but running back is one position I'm looking at first. Quarterback as well, Kendall. I could see them adding a veteran guy. KJ Jefferson was brought up. I'm not sure if KJ Jefferson's necessarily the man. He would certainly compete for the job with Lenore Sellers, but I would think Lenore Sellers would win that job, or you would want him to win that job if you're South Carolina. I don't know why you would start a KJ Jefferson midway through the season to have him, eventually turn over the reins to Sellers. I would much rather have Sellers just start the year off and learn and grow. It's his sophomore season. Have this season to grow. Let your other freshmen grow. You've got the Great Wall coming in as well at the offensive line. Cam Pringle, Josiah Thompson. Kendall, you brought up the offensive line. I could see them going after another veteran. You brought up the guy from Indiana, very talented kid. Could see them attack him as well. But defensively, I think you're pretty much set in your defensive backfield. You've got a lot of studs there. Your linebackers are set, Grayson Howard and Stone Blanton coming back, but you could also use some more depth there. You've got Jerron Willis coming up, but defensive tackle and edge are the ones you want to look at. Dylan Stewart coming in, so that's exciting. I could see them adding a veteran edge to bring up him. So Kendall, anything else before we wrap things up on the transfer portal talk? I know we've been over a lot. The 2024 recruiting class also coming in is very good. We can get to them too if you wanted.
Yeah, Elijah Green, running back in the transfer portal now out of North Carolina. So that's another name to keep an eye on. And then Jonathan Mendoza from Yale, an offensive tackle. I bet Dante Reno is on that one. So we'll see what happens. GamecockCentral.com is definitely the place to go. There's certainly to be more names announced over these next couple of days that we probably won't even get to during the show, because in this time, we don't quite know what's going to happen in the next 2 days. So check out GamecockCentral.com. Our social media is at Gamecock Central, and our whole crew over there will keep you posted left and right on everything that you need to know. I don't do the hard work. They're just over there working incredibly hard in Columbia, and I get to come on and talk about it here from Charlotte.
Yeah, absolutely. We always love having Kendall on, and yes, we are still here in Columbia in the trenches, but Kendall is doing awesome work up there in Charlotte, working for the Knights, the Checkers, and is there one more?
Doing a little ESPN Plus
ESPN
stuff.
Plus, yeah.
We're doing football sideline report, basically everything that, I said in college, like I wasn't going to have 7 jobs anymore when I graduated, but now I have a full-time job and I have like 5 jobs on the side. But I like to stay busy, so it works.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, again, we're having you're recurring guest on the walkthrough, so need to keep having you on the show. It's always.
I love it. I'm always down.
Absolutely. Before we get you out of here, you want to talk about Gamecock hoops for a sec?
Let's do it. It's been great. I love this.
The Fighting Quarter Zips in Lamont Paris. I know I should be wearing my quarter zip today, as it is technically game day today, but I apologize to Lamont not wearing my quarter zip today. But yeah, Kendall, this is a very exciting men's basketball team led by Michi Johnson and BJ Mack. What are you seeing from those guys?
It's just a togetherness, right? Like this has been the theme of what so many people are talking about, but I am so impressed with this team, and huge hats off goes to Lamont Paris. After the season last year, you had people calling for his job. You had people that were sitting there saying, he's not the guy for this. I have no faith in him, blah, blah, blah. Left and right, people were coming for Lamont Paris. And I understand that season was very difficult in a lot of different ways for the Gamecocks, but kudos to him because he has come out this year. He has this team playing together. They look fantastic. BJ Mack has been great. Michi Johnson has been great. They are at the helm leading this group of players that are playing extremely unselfish basketball. And that's one of my favorite things about college basketball. Like, it should be unselfish to a certain degree. Because in the NBA, and I love the NBA. I love watching basketball. I grew up watching basketball. That was the main sport that my family and I would sit around and watch on the couch at night because, again, my parents went to Indiana. It's a way of life up there.
Oh, yeah.
I think the great thing about college basketball is that kind of togetherness of it and the unselfish play that you don't always see at the NBA level. And I felt like last year for South Carolina, in a lot of ways, you were seeing that selfishness. And I'm sitting there saying, am I watching a bunch of players that are, pseudo NBA right now? Like, it wasn't fun basketball to watch. This is fun basketball to watch. You have the crowd engaged. The fans are loving it. Lamont Paris is doing a great job. You have great leaders on the team. Everybody's contributing, and they're more interested in winning than boosting their personal stats. And I think that is the key to success if you're South Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have summed it up any better myself, Kendall. And I think this is kind of ushering in the new era of college basketball. We talk about how the transfer portal is doing negative things, I guess, or semi-negative things to football. Well, this is where the portal is helping college basketball, right? I feel like the era of one and dones is over. You're finding more teams more players that want to play on a team and want to play good basketball to go win something, right? The veterans, those type of players is what Lamont Paris is looking for at South Carolina. He's found a lot of veterans, and this team was picked to finish dead last in the SEC, I believe. Currently 6-0 after a big win against Notre Dame at home. How
you feeling about that, Joe?
Oh, very good. I mean, I'm with Lamont's team. Obviously, shout out to Marcus Burton and J.R. Knesny because they're South Bend Hoopers. I grew up kind of like watching them. Obviously, I was in college by the time Marcus came up, but I watched a lot of JR. He gave my high school fits back in the day. So shout out to those guys for representing South Bend. Coach Shrewsbury is doing good things with that program. And I touched about it on the basketball show, but Coach Shrewsbury, what he said about that atmosphere, Colonial Life, stood out to me, right? When he said, he's down there for warm-ups and the students piled in and he was like, oh shit. I think that's a very big thing because where Coach Shrewsbury was before Notre Dame was at Penn State. And Kendall, I mean, we brought up the Indiana connection. Coach Shrewsbury knows a thing or two about tough road environments. I mean, road games in the Big Ten are not easy. So for him to say that about Colonial Life in November, I think that's something that, the fans that were out there on a school night, like I said, should – hold their heads high on. And it's basketball school material. You're building this here.
Yeah.
And so that's what you need. And this team certainly has earned the respect of the fan base and the Quarter Zip movement. I wrote about it. It got published today. It's so much fun. Lamont talked about it. It's been a very fun wave. So it's keeping fans engaged with this team, and they're loving it. I mean, Michi feeds off of, fans and energy in that building. So it's a very fun team. They've got a very big test against Clemson on Wednesday. And Clemson just beat Alabama at Alabama, the team that won your conference last year. So that's going to be a tough road test, and we'll see. I mean, if they can at the very least hang with them, I think this team has a lot of potential to contend for a tournament bid.
Yeah, I love what you said about Colonial Life, just getting rowdy and turning up and people piling in. Like, that is your goal if you are South Carolina. For all of the years that I was there in terms of men's basketball. Now, women's basketball, CLA is always popping for women's basketball because obviously they're a super fun team to watch, and Dawn Staley knows what she's doing, and she's built this incredible program and fan base. But for men's basketball, all the years that I was at South Carolina, it was always kind of like, yeah, Willie B is always going to go off, and Founders Park is always going to be a great college baseball atmosphere. And then CLA for men's basketball is just kind of like there. And it's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not good. And now you're getting to the point where you are starting to intrigue the fan base. You're starting to intrigue the students. And I think that is a huge win for Lamont Paris. We need to get to the point as South Carolina to start having the people want to come out to these men's basketball games and be excited about men's basketball. It's been a while since people have been excited about the men's basketball program at South Carolina. And to see that, I feel is such a good thing for the Gamecocks, and probably so gratifying for Lamont and his team to know that they are creating that excitement that in turn draws the fans out and helps them to win big games like they did against Notre Dame.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Kendall, last thing before I get you out of here. As always, with this show, we put on our optimism glasses, talk about the good things.
Joe didn't tell me, guys. Joe did not tell me that I had to do this. I didn't forget.
Yeah, that is fully on me. So I've got my shades. But Kendall, give me something that people listening or watching should be excited about anything South Carolina athletics. What should they be excited about?
We kind of touched on this at the beginning of the show, but be excited about what South Carolina could do when it comes to the portal. We've seen the way that the portal has gifted South Carolina in the past. Obviously, Spencer Rattler, probably everyone's favorite Gamecock watching this, came from the transfer portal. So have a lot of other really, really great players for South Carolina. So be excited and be optimistic about what could come. I totally understand. It is so easy to get down in the dumps and to feel like, oh, the transfer portal is taking everyone away from South Carolina. Everyone's leaving. That's how it feels right now. But check in about 3 weeks, in about a month, reevaluate and see how you feel, because there are a lot of really talented names and guys that are leaving other schools that people are really sad about that South Carolina will have an opportunity to have on their team for next year. So that is what I'm feeling optimistic about, and I hope that you all do too.
Yeah, most certainly. Kendall hit the nail on the head. I mean, Shane has done a great job recruiting in the portal so far. So trust the process a little bit. Give him some time. Let Shane cook a little bit. If you want to see results, because he's done so far so good, right? And there's exciting stuff about this football program. Williams-Brice being as packed as it is, and Mike brought this up a bunch during the season though. They had a losing record, and you were still selling out Williams-Brice like you were. That is very enticing for players. And then obviously all the good things that they're doing over at Garnet Trust wouldn't be possible without your support. So never a bad time to go support them. But there are a lot of good things happening within the building that, doesn't always leak out. It's not always the positive stuff that leaks out. So that's why, Kendall, we have to put on the optimism shades and talk about it on the show to bring light to all of, some of the good things, all of the good things that are happening around Gamecock athletics. Yeah. Kendall, last thing, where can people find you? What's been up?
Oh my gosh, people can find me on all social media platforms. I'm on Instagram, Kendall_Smith with 2 H's, unfortunately. And I always say this, my parents thought back in 2000 that Kendall was a unique name, but having Smith as your last name and then Kendall getting more and more popular, it's just not as unique anymore. And then on Twitter, it's Smith Kendall 2_. So you can find me on both of those platforms. Always love hearing from my Gamecocks. So definitely hit me up, give me a follow, say, hey, if you're ever here in Charlotte, that's also one of my most favorite things in the world. If you're at a Checkers game or whatever it might be, I will have people reach out that are Gamecock fans that follow the site, that keep up with Gamecock Central, and they're like, hey, I'm at this game, I see you, and that's always a great connection to make as well. So if you are in the Queen City, then definitely let me know via Twitter or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. Give the Queen a shout, if you will. But thank you again for joining me, Kendall. It's always a good time. Need to have you on again soon. But that will do it for this week's edition of The Walkthrough. I am your host, Intern Joe Macheca. Tune in to GC Live Talking Tuesday nights on Tuesday. And then we will have, as always, The Hard Foul on Wednesday. And then my show, as always, on Sunday.
Give Joe some love. He's working his butt off, everybody. So great job, Joe. Keep it up.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Kendall. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you again next week.